know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid.
People are tired of the old ways. People are turning their neurological chemical reactions from a perceived threat into fuel. It's taken roughly about 25 years, but the prophecy that the Matrix ended with is here. It's real, and people know about your Matrix. Being woke is a follow through of what the Matrix metaphor was trying to explain. People finally get it and can see the code, or better yet, the programming, just like Neo.
Visions of Martin Luther staring at me. Malcolm X put a hex on my future, someone catch me. I'm falling victim to a revolutionary song. The Serengeti's clone. Back to put you backstabbers back on your spinal. Everybody put 3 fingers in the
air. Hi. Today I want to make a case for supporting Wutu in traditional media versus social media or social media. Umoja kwa kananchi kwa gharama yoyote. You get a translation of that. The term media defines a number of different communication formats, from television media, which share information through broadcast airwaves, to print media, which rely on printed documents. The collection of all forms of media that communicate information to the general public is called mass media, including television, print, radio, and internet. One of the primary reasons citizens turn to the media is for news. We expect the media to cover important political and social events and information in a concise and neutral manner. To accomplish its work, the media employs a number of people in varied positions. Journalists and reporters are responsible for uncovering news stories by keeping an eye on areas of public interest like politics, business, and sports. Once a journalist has a lead or a possible idea for a story, he or she researches background information and interviews people to create a complete and balanced account. Editors work in the background of the newsroom, assigning stories, approving articles or packages, and editing content for accuracy and clarity. Publishers are people or companies that own and produce print or digital media. They oversee both the content and the finances of the publication, ensuring the organization turns a profit and creates a high-quality product to distribute to consumers. Producers oversee the production and finances of visual media like television, radio, and film. The work of the news media differs from public relations, which is communication carried out to improve the image of companies, organizations, or candidates for public office. Public relations is not a neutral information form. I repeat that. Public relations is not a neutral information form. While journalists write stories to inform the public, a public relations spokesperson is paid to help an individual organization get positive press. Public relations materials normally appear as press releases or paid advertisements in newspapers and other media outlets. Some less reputable publications, however, publish paid articles under the news banner, blurring the line between journalism and public relations.
I said to white corporate America, who conveniently excluded Black-owned media, I said, we represent approximately 14% of the population. We should be 15% of your ad budget. The extra 1 or 2 points is for the 150 years you did not do business with us.
And trying to get advertising dollars for Black-owned media spaces isn't just a battle Allen fights at corporate negotiating tables. When I talked to Allen, he told me about his ongoing fight with McDonald's to hold them to account for their promises about advertising with Black-owned media.
So listen, let's talk about McDonald's. McDonald's takes in about $100 billion a year out of 39,000 stores, and a lot of it is out of the Black community. McDonald's is spending approximately, we believe, $1 billion a year in advertising, $1 billion. And Black-owned media, when I filed the lawsuit, was getting less than $5 million, when we believe they're pulling up about $40 billion in sales out of the Black community. So I filed a $10 billion lawsuit against them using the Civil Rights Act of 1866, Section 1881. And then the Civil Rights Act, it is stated, which was put on the books as the first Civil Rights Act in this country to protect Black people in this country. We would have economic inclusion in contracting, commercial and government. And I used this lawsuit, and it has not been dismissed. That's a big deal. That's huge. That's historic. And I believe that it was, it's not only historic, it was absolutely necessary because it gives us transparency.
So now, to be fair, I do want to mention that when your latest lawsuit was filed, McDonald's released a statement, and they said in part, quote, Byron Allen files baseless lawsuits as part of a public smear campaign against our company to try to line his pockets. We will not be coerced by these tactics and will defend ourselves vigorously. So,
and everything on TV just a figment of imagination. I don't want no plastic nation. Dread that like a Haitian. Why you motherfuckers waiting? I'll be off the slave ship, building pyramids, writing my own hieroglyphs. Just call it shit high power. Nigga, nothing less than high power. 5-star dishes, food for thought, bitches. I mean, this shit is Huey Newton going stupid. You can't resist his high power. Throw your hands up for high power.
History is a sort of gangster, because this is a gangster story, but a gangster.
So that's just kind of like the umbrella of media, not mentioning social media, which I'll come back to in just a moment. But where we can be with media, I think it would be ideal to get like mainstream media to be civil and honest. And basically, currently there's too much baggage in the media where people like put their personal biases at the headlines of articles and things of that nature. And that is one of the reasons why people create their own media spaces. You have so many different newspapers, articles, and magazines, etc., that kind of support only certain groups. And then you have these other companies that have to come in and fill in that void because they're always made to look bad in the main outlets like New York Times or Los Angeles, LA Times, and things of that nature, which I'm going to double back to the LA Times in just a moment. So, take a peek at like some of these different Black-owned news sites. Now, the same should go for social media, but we can get into that more at a later date.
And everything on TV just a figment of imagination. I don't want no plastic nation. Dread that like a Haitian. Why you motherfuckers waiting?
One of the most widely known images in commercial media. She was the Black mother figure in white homes characterized to take care of her white family better than her own. She's non-threatening, obese, maternal, and often portrayed as being unattractive and very religious. Even though the mammy is well known and has considerable authority in her white family, she still always knows her place as a servant. Okay. So in the film Gone with the Wind, Either way, in the film Gone with the Wind, the mammy She was a great actress, but film executives during the time period only allowed her to play the role of the mammy. So in many of the films that she appeared in, that was all that she could ever be. And then when The Help was released in 2011, it was, after a very long time, since the 1960s, one of the first films to come back with the stereotype of nannies. Viola Davis and Octavia Spencer both won awards for their roles as mammies, reminding us that America only loves to see Black women when they play a submissive role as a maid. The Jezebel. So in the film Foxy Brown, Black women were characterized as only sexual fiends and always played the role of aggressive sexual beings. Halle Berry was the first African-American woman to win an Academy Award for Best Actress in the film Monsters Ball in 2001. But in this film, she is often seen being submissive to the white male. There's always a lot of emphasis in the film of her being overly sexualized and her just being involved in a lot of sexual activity. The Sapphire, the angry Black woman. So the angry Black woman is often portrayed as yelling at her husband or always being angry towards African American men. But this is a social construct and control mechanism that is implemented to punish Black women for violating societal norms of being passive, servile, non-threatening, and unseen. These degrading stereotypes make it seem as though Black women can't be anything more than maids or angry or super sexual.
And everything on TV just a figment of imagination. I don't want no plastic nation. Dread that like a Haitian. Why you motherfuckers waiting?
There have been like a lot of press releases that basically kind of denigrate like certain types of citizens. I mean, the most recent one is kind of like what we would call speculative, speculative or whatever, in regards to like say Vin Diesel. I kind of looked at some people's reading of like the lawsuit and all that. I think the statutory limitations has passed. That's why it's a lawsuit and not like charges, like actual criminal charges being filed. But yeah, like basically all these headlines are coming up, well, this person is being sued or this person is being accused of, and yeah, they'll leave some details inside of the first paragraph that kind of maybe allude or hint at or imply guilt, by saying, oh, this person is abusive, blah, blah, blah. This is their personal history where people have been talking about them, et cetera, et cetera. And generally, you're supposed to have sources and say that these sources are reliable, et cetera, but nowadays, people don't even cite like actual sources. Like they just say 15 people, 20 people, 40 people said that this person has committed similar acts, and that could be so generic, so broad. But anyway, yeah, so honestly, my question now is, what is the legal ramifications of all of this? Where you're basically being libeled, because it's in print, being slandered because it's being said openly in some kind of video or something of that nature, or just being defamed or whatever the case may be. So let's kind of walk down the terms for what those are. So the terms libel, slander, and defamation are frequently confused with each other. They are all similar in that they all fall into the same general area of law that concerns false statements which harm a person's reputation. This general area of law is called defamation law. Libel and slander are types of defamatory statements. Libel is a defamatory statement that is written. Slander is a defamatory statement that is oral. Historically, the distinction between libel and slander was significant and had real-world implications regarding how a case is litigated, including the elements that had to be proven and who had the burden of proof. Illinois courts have changed their approach. However, as the Illinois Supreme Court explained, Bryson v. News America Publication Incorporated, at common law, libel and slander were analyzed under different sets of standards, with libel recognized as the more serious wrong. Illinois law evolved, however, and rejected this bifurcation approach in favor of a single set of rules for slander and libel. Libel and slander are now treated alike, and the same rules apply to a defamatory statement, regardless of whether the statement is written or oral. The tort of defamation, sometimes referred to as a defamation of character, can be divided into claims involving two distinct types of statements: defamatory per se statements and defamatory per quote statements. Statements that are defamatory per se, sometimes referred to generally by courts as libel per se, are so obviously and naturally harmful to one's reputation on their face that proof of injury is not required. There it is. Illinois law recognizes 5 types of statements that are considered defamatory per se: imputing that a person committed a crime, imputing that a person is infected with a loathsome communicable disease, imputing that a person is unable or lacks the integrity to perform one's employment duties, imputing that a person lack ability or otherwise prejudices one in one's profession, and imputing that a person has engaged in adultery or fornication. Importantly, a statement can only be considered defamatory per se if the harmful effect is apparent on the face of a statement itself, if extrinsic facts or additional information about the person being defamed is required to understand the harmful effect of the statement, then it cannot be defamatory per se. That is not to say that the statement is not defamatory if extrinsic facts are required. It just cannot be defamatory per se. All right, if a defamatory statement does not fall into one of the defamatory per se categories or requires extinct facts, then it is considered defamatory per quote. Unlike in cases involving defamation per se, defamation per quote claims require that the plaintiff to allege and prove special damages, also called special harm by some courts. Yeah, definitely defamation per quote in these cases that I just previously mentioned. So the term special damages or special harm is a legal term of art and defamation law that means the loss of something with actual economic or pecuniary value. In other words, a plaintiff alleging defamation per quote must be able to show specifically how the defamation caused a specific quantifiable loss of money, such as the commission from a lost sale or the salary from a lost job. Tell me.
We're covering race, or we're looking at the issue or topic of race, but then we have to then start shifting into that conversation about racism, bias in media. And let's explore that even more, especially based on what Sandra was sharing with us just now. How does media contribute to racism, we think, or what we see or what we're experiencing? How does this all manifest?
Well, if you're an African American and you've grown up in watching how the news portrays stories in your community, how it portrays crime in your community, there's no question that the media does a very poor job of giving nuance to stories that affect Black people when it comes to crime, when it comes to economics, when it comes to politics. A lot of what happens in mainstream media and even in some smaller or independent media outlets is that, it's sexy to talk about, violence and talk about this quote unquote boogeyman that you can, that's scaring everybody. People love that. It gets ratings, it gets people's attention, but it doesn't really get to the root of the problem that's going on in these communities. Nobody talks about the systemic racism that creates crime in communities to begin with. Nobody really talks about, the disenfranchisement that goes on for generations in certain neighborhoods where there's food deserts, where there's lack of opportunity, where neighborhoods are over-policed, no one really goes to go in depth and talk to those people because they're not seen as people, they're seen as units and they're seen as statistics, and nobody goes and try to get to their inner lives. And I think that's dangerous. And we also have to talk about the fact that a lot of times when there are actual reporters of different colors who understand that, but when you're going to an editor who doesn't understand what you're talking about and has no reason to understand what you're talking about and doesn't have to worry about it because whatever they put out, as long as you have somebody who's picture's dark and with dreads who committed some crime, they know that's going to sell, it's going to get ratings, so they don't have a reason to do that. That has to change. I don't know how that's going to change when the people who make those decisions have no empathy for the people they're reporting on.
Yeah, that's a good point, Professor. I want to expound on that a bit more, right? Because I do often wonder. I do often see, as someone who's worked I'm not a journalist by training, more in political strategy. That was my space, and then sort of accidentally fell into journalism in the media space. But I've been with enough media organizations to see that all unfold and how those decisions are made. What do we know about that decision process? I'm going to start with you, Professor, and then I'm going to shift over to you, Sandra, to kind of offer some insights on that. But is it, are we seeing still that diversity problem with the newsrooms where largely you have white reporters, white editors, white talking heads, white anchors, hosts, producers who are making those decisions? They're also limited in terms of their social networks. I mean, we have to also consider that. I mean, just looking at how we're evolving as a society. I mean, you still have largely white social networks that are pretty much confined to white people, and then that may kind of limit or constrain the sorts of expertise and perspectives that they're bringing to the table and making these news decisions. I mean, how is all this playing out in these news organizations?
Absolutely. So everything you brought up is applicable. And Torrin brought up an excellent point that it is about this bottom line, what's going to sell, what's going to be sensationalized in the media so that you can drive advertising and things along those lines. My work looks at also kind of from a social psychological standpoint. And so white people, and most of us, we exist in social circles where we only see ourselves, but we also work to protect our identity. So when you have a newsroom that's white editors and white journalists, and most of those advertisers are white, they're not only looking at the bottom line, they're also protecting their group and their identity. And so telling stories that pit social groups against each other, that creates this racial hierarchy, is embedded in our society. And so for me, it's two-pronged. And I'll give you an example. Today, news came out that the governor of Michigan, there was an actual plot to kidnap her and take over the actual state house. But we're not talking about race, because sometimes white people implicitly need to protect whiteness. And so instead of saying a group of white men were attempting to take down a white woman, we now say the governor was being attacked by a militia. So we erase race from the conversation altogether, and not because it's not sensationalized, because there's a need to protect my group, protect my identity. My esteem, my identity matters to me. So I don't want to have those conversations. So it's easy for me to call the Black person a thug, or the Muslim a terrorist, or the Latino undocumented, because that's not my group. I don't have a feeling tied to that. So I can demonize and vilify.
So, the next topic that I wanted to cover is how people are, or how Hutu are portrayed in the media. And I found a note that said something about a series that drew prompt and deserved criticism, that highlighted an insidious problem that had marred the work of the Los Angeles Times for much of its history. While the newspaper has done groundbreaking and important work highlighting the issues faced by communities of color, it has also often displayed at best a blind spot, at worst an outright hostility for the city's non-white population. One, both rooted and reflected in the shortage of indigenous, Black, Latino, Asian, and other people of color in its newsroom. Yes. All right. Prompted by a pandemic, an economic crisis, and a national debate over policing, all of which have spotlighted racial disparities in the United States, our nation now faces a long-delayed reckoning with systemic racism. We would be remiss in the autumn of 2020, a season of grief and introspection, if we did not take part in that self-examination. This editorial is one part of that process, and here's a preview of that article that shows the headline for, like one of their actual poorly presented articles in a newspaper. All right. So, every major press outlet in the United States typically commemorate the life of Dr. King. The Washington Post ran a series of commentaries. The New York Times ran an emotional editorial written by the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was with King in Memphis that day. Neither paper will mention that they each denounced Dr. King in his later years. Nor will any outlet today likely mention that King had fallen sharply out of favor with much of the national media exactly a year earlier, 51 years ago today, so this article was written probably about a year ago or something like that. So the offense was a speech in New York. Okay, so in that speech, King spoke of the hundreds of thousands trembling under our violence abroad, and added that a country as financially and politically committed to wars as ours could never fight a war on poverty in earnest. And they crucified him for it. So the question now is, can inferring that someone is guilty lead to an assumption of guilt publicly and also be considered slander, libel, or defamation? Because for a very long time, we've seen cases where you get attacked by the media and basically based on public sentiment, certain types of people feel liberated to commit crimes against those people that you're denigrating. So I think that it's very important to not slander, libel, or defame, because there's real world implications to all of that. And the least of it could be that you get sued for every bit of money that you have or more. So, another topic that I wanted to cover is social media and how it plays a role in today's, thought processes, how society works, how information is processed by, computer users, basically. So, what is social media? And generally, like the general definition is websites and applications that enable users to create and share content or to participate in social networking. So where did it start? Roughly with AOL. There was actually another site, as you can see here, before AOL, but Friendster and MySpace were where things started to pick up and become more popular, where social media became more popular. So just to kind of break it down a little bit, I have a description here. I have a description here that talks about social media generally. So users usually access social media services through web-based apps or desktops, or download services that offer social media functionality to their mobile devices. As users engage with these electronic services, they create highly interactive platforms in which individuals, communities, and organizations can share, co-create, discuss, participate, and modify user-generated and self-curated content posted online. Additionally, social media are used to document memories, learn about and explore things, advertise oneself, and form friendships, along with the growth of ideas from the creation of blogs, podcasts, videos, and gaming sites. The changing relationship between humans and technology is the focus of the emerging field of technological self-studies. Some of the most popular social media sites with more than 100 million registered users include Twitter, Facebook, WeChat, ShareChat, Instagram, QZone, Weibo, VK, Tumblr, Baidu, Tiba, and LinkedIn. Depending on interpretation, other popular platforms that are sometimes referred to as social media services include YouTube, QQ, that's in China, Quora, Telegram, WhatsApp, Signal, Line, Snapchat, Pinterest, Viber, Reddit, Discord, TikTok, Microsoft Teams, and more. Wikis are examples of collaborative content creation, so I guess not really social media per se. All right. I generally go to a web page by the name of github.com. If I click on this home button here, this is kind of like their home page or whatever. I'm not signed in, so it's not actually going to show anything. But yeah, so basically on github.com, you could search for certain topics. And if I wanted to look for like MySpace clones, it would come up with a bunch of different results similar to what I'm looking at here. And this is what MySpace looked like when it first came out, roughly around 2005. This page has like two main files here, a folder for pictures, a folder for like the colors and basically like colors and where things are going to be placed on the screen. Go into this CSS thing here, folder here, and the pictures. Let me see. So let's see what pictures are here. There's like Tom, and I think there's like a couple of different people down here. Actually, I can show you on the demo page. They have a demo page. So I believe this one is the demo page. And also it's right here too. So yeah, here's their demo page, and there's a folder with images inside of it for Tom, for MySpace Records, Andy, and all these other people. Get 4 extra photos for your profile when you buy MySpace Records Volume 1. Interesting. Yeah, so there's more photos down here under the Tom's Friends Comments section here. Let's probably zoom in a little bit. Yeah, so Slacker. So apparently this image is missing for Reese. This image is missing for Brian. Woodrow Wilson is missing an image. Vicky, Cammy, but apparently James Dean has his image here. So let's take a look in the folder real quick online to see what images or what pictures are available here. So yeah, we have Abraham, maybe Abraham Lincoln. Let's see if I can click on one of these. Oh, that's Abraham. Okay. Yeah, so if we come back over here, this guy is Abraham. Boom, right there. All right. And if we go back to the pictures folder, we can see like a bunch of different icons. Add friend icon is here. Add to group icon. All of that. Oh, even Tom's pick or Tom pick. Yeah, that's Tom right there. And that's his pick right there. All right, so if I was to right click on this and say open image in new private tab, Tom pick.jpg, and then this is that image right there. And that's all under GitHub right now. All right, so and none of these links should work here. If I click on groups, it should like go nowhere or do nothing. Yeah, nothing happens when you click on these. Or even when you like click, so when you click search, it refreshes the page. But yeah, so this is kind of like the template. This is where it wasn't the first social media site. It was roughly about the third. Yeah, and it was more popular than the other ones. And I was like addicted to it. Like I was going in there, I was meeting people from different states and all kinds of stuff was going on. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. But why not have wootubespace.com or something like that? Like, why not have our own space and maybe even connect to some existing YouTube pages or something like that? Maybe embed your YouTube here, and then if somebody wants to, they can subscribe either from here on your WooTube page, or they can click the link to go back to your YouTube and then subscribe over there. Yeah. So that is a peek under the hood of how something like this could work. Another thing that we can take a peek at is let's see where this date is at in the code. So the code, I barely remember writing the code. I think you basically copied like all the HTML for an entire MySpace page, and then you pasted it into like some kind of editor, and then it changed everything. If you wanted it to change everything, it basically changed everything except for like the contacting Tom section or contacting the user section and all that. But it changed the theme, the background color, and all that kind of stuff. So like if I wanted to, I could kind of practice with that real quick by, where is it? Layers, sources? No. It's missing. Oh, there it is. All right. So like if I wanted to change the background color of the body, I don't know the body. So yeah, background color, and that's over there. So that background color is currently like like a white. So if I changed it to something like 868686, it turns gray, I think. But I have to be able to see it. Yeah, there it is, gray. And if I wanted it to be green, so the first two numbers are red, the second two numbers are green, the last two are blue. So if I was to go 00, 00, then we get a green background here. So yeah, there's your green. All right. Yeah, so basically this is how you can kind of manipulate, HTML and web pages. And I mean, honestly, like I was having fun when I was doing this, and I wasn't actually taught how to do it. Like I just saw something about you could change the CSS, and almost everybody that was using MySpace was literally writing HTML code and CSS code. So yeah, we can just go back to that. So, all right. On that note, I want to show a video clip here and just kind of like talk about it a little bit. All
Erica Albrecht's a bitch. Do you think that's because her family changed their name from Albrecht? Or do you think it's because all BU girls are bitches?
Looks like it could be Stella Artois.
For the record, she may look like a 34C, but she's getting all kinds.
I'm going to skip all of the denigration here. The truth is she has a nice face, blah, blah, blah. Where's the coding stuff? Well, technically, this entire time he was writing code.
Why? So what if it's not even 10 p.m. and it's a Tuesday night? Really? The Kirkland Facebook is open on my desktop, and some of these people have pretty horrendous Facebook pics.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Billy Olson's sitting here and had the idea of putting some of the pictures next to pictures of farm animals and have people vote on who's hotter.
So I'm going to pause it.
Good call, Mr. Olson.
Where he talks about using the wget command.
Yeah, it's on. I'm not going to do the farm animals, but I like the idea of comparing two people together. It gives the whole thing a very Turing feel, since people's ratings of the pictures.
Turing test is like if you're an AI or if you're a human being, Turing feel, whatever.
Be more implicit than, say, choosing a number to represent each person's hotness like they do on hotornot.com. The first thing we're going to need is a lot of pictures. Unfortunately, Harvard doesn't keep a public centralized Facebook, so I'm going to have to get all the images from the individual houses that people are in. Let the hacking begin. First up is Kirkland. They keep everything open and allow indexes in their Apache configuration, so a little wget magic is all that's necessary.
Now, that part right there, I actually haven't tested this command with wget out, but definitely have tested wget out. Let's see, how can I slow this down to 0.25? Magic is all that's necessary. Okay, so let's see if I can go back half a second, I guess. Yeah, this right here. So wget-a.jpg. Now, I think this was a typo, and they just decided, whatever, let's just leave it in there. All right, yeah, so Stack Overflow is a pretty common website for finding solutions. This one uses -a, and then it has all the extent. Oh, there's a period in front of this on my example. So here you have the location. I saw an ND earlier. Yeah, so the comma separated list, and then you put the URL where you're downloading it from. All right, so let's try this one here. All right, so the URL that we're trying it against is this guy. Not all of that, actually up to here. And so I'm going to replace that here. And I don't want the GIF or PNG, I just want the JPG. So let's do that. And save location, desktop. Actually, all right, so let's see if this works. Let's show you all of the images that we just downloaded from that web page. Yeah, so these are all the images there. All right, so FYI, if you have a Mac or a Linux computer, you can basically download all of these images from a web page using the wget command, similar to what I just did. And this is how you can find instructions on how to get all of this done. So I did all of that just to show you that, if you look in the right places, you can find solutions to build some of the tools that you need, to get what you want. All right. David Stamps is one of the panelists here that talks about his experience with the media and how things work generally. But I would also like to add that David Stamps doesn't dispute social media's harmful potential, but he believes the medium also has the capacity to educate, inspire, and empower, particularly for Black Americans. Indeed, as the Assistant Professor of Information Design and Corporate Communication, IDCC, explains in research published in Journalism and Mass Communication Quarterly, the existence of social media has allowed Black individuals to share their grievances, celebrate their successes, and call attention to injustices and build awareness around cultural issues. Black Americans use social media more than any other racial group, Stamp says, and are more likely to engage in online activism. A widely cited 2018 study from Nielsen, a media analytics firm, found that Black Americans, who constitute just 14% of the total U.S. population, account for 28% of all Twitter users. The platform has proven so popular among Black audiences, in fact, that it spawned Black Twitter, a community of like-minded users that exists within the larger digital network, linked via hashtag Black Twitter and characterized by conversations about issues and experiences important to the Black community. Now, here are a few networks that you may have been aware of Some of them are Wutu owned, some are made by Black communities. I'm not on all of them, but I just wanted to share that they exist. So now I ask, if we don't have our own, or know about or rely on our own networks, what can we do to support Wutu on existing networks? Like if you're not on Melanated People or Beam, how can you actually support the Wutu community when you're not on those platforms? I would say in YouTube and Twitter and all these other places. There might be a way to list all Black social media profiles and kind of rank them based upon their popularity, and basically maybe even lift up, ones that are not as popular that possibly should be, by ranking them. And then, if people just kind of like go to this place, Wutu space or whatever, maybe something similar to like a MySpace, then they'll be able to see, which accounts are trending and just kind of jump in and look at those Wutu accounts. So, I personally have 5 Facebook accounts, 4 Twitter accounts, 2 newly created TikTok accounts, and a partridge in a pear tree. This is December 25th. When I want to throw support behind my new favorite channels, I subscribe on those pages and channels with multiple accounts generally. And if I actually like the material and want more suggestions like it from the creator, I react to them and share them and all of these things. So that is what we can do for each other, is give more reach to those that wouldn't see the content for Wutu and will now be able to, because you shared it on your Linktree account or in your Facebook group or even on the Wutu space. Maybe we could have like a Linktree version of that, yeah. All right. So, if we are not going to be opposites of non-Wutu, then we should support reach for Wutu. When their film properties are objectively good, it is popular in the mainstream. Non-Wutu support these properties, these films. Wutu support these properties and films. When Wutu properties are objectively good, it is generally not popular in the mainstream, where majority Wutu don't even get to either hear about it or talk about it because of differences of opinions about certain categories of film, etc., etc. One example would be like anime or something. Not everyone is into anime. So I would say that many times it's not enough to financially support Wutu properties, but they must attack these properties publicly and are in lockstep when it's not their own properties. And I recently found this on in a group that I've been a part of for a few months now, and quite a few people just didn't really see the point of that meme. So I'm sharing it here, and if you see the pattern, raise your hand, throw a like on the video, or say, I see it. I see the memes point. So if you look closely at the right side, where there's like a dark head and then a light head and then a dark head and a light head, etc., and then look on the left and there's like a dark head and a light head and a dark head and a light head, etc., there's like a pattern there, in that pretty much, I would say Kevin Feige is like, hey, I do have an agenda. I do want to make more films with people of color in them, and I'm going to sprinkle them in every other movie that we put out. And it just so happens that the first one was the villain, where the villain was a Black lead, and it was poorly received. When it was a fully written script, by the director, I believe, of that film, Peyton Reed, I think, and probably one other person or more, and directed by Peyton Reed. And majority of the actors in that film were non-Wutu. In addition to that, there were some things that happened in the film that were in alignment with the storyline of that character. So that the main character for that film, Ant-Man, Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, really has never been popular. So the fact that, you know, it wasn't gonna, the fact that it turned out to be not that great of a film, the same director, I think, did all three of those films, maybe at least the last two, but pretty sure he did the first one too. So he has never really been a director that drew people into the media, into the MCU. So that would be the reason why the first one kind of flopped, or at least the primary reason, because Ant-Man just wasn't popular. Like it's always been kind of like the lower tier character / film franchise, even financially, mainly financially. So the second one, Guardians of the Galaxy, basically here you have like a popular franchise from its inception, a ragtag group of characters, you know, a family, so to speak, that a found family, I would say, and they just kind of like make the best of their situation, and they, you know, work things out in their film, and they were fairly popular. The director for that versus Peyton Reed, I would say, is much better. Like, I don't think that they would ask Peyton Reed to lead the DCU. So James Gunn is a really good director. And I'm gonna end this rant about this meme here with this next one. So I made a video about Nick Fury always being funny, and that was one of the complaints. They were saying Nick Fury was making too many jokes, and it just so happens that he's a producer on this show, and he's the main lead of the show. And yes, I'm not even gonna lie, the show had problems. It had some problems, but honestly, what doesn't have problems? I recently, as a matter of fact, yesterday, I just watched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and there are problems in that movie too. But people don't talk about the problems in those films. Loki has problems. People don't really talk about those problems. Deadpool will most likely have problems in it, but people will not talk about those problems. And a perfect example of that is this video clip. Of what's currently going on this weekend, December 25th and prior, with Aquaman. So Aquaman, I believe, did half as much in their first week as the Marvels, and it didn't get the hate campaign that the Marvels got. So if the Marvels didn't get that hate campaign, they would probably be sitting at $1 billion, and people wouldn't be influenced by the fact that there's 2 Wutu leads in that movie, in the Marvels. So yeah, I said I was gonna stop at Secret Invasion, but I guess I had to say something about the Marvels. But yeah, so finally, I want you to be able to see clearly what it is that these social media sites are, and how they were initially created, and what they're actually doing to society, because and for society, because I actually like this meme. Even though, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's being critical of the people that say the MCU is dead. This meme is being critical of those people. So, you know, it has its ups and it has its downs. But let's take advantage of the ups. How you can see how racism is at play. Case in point, there's a guy that is pretty funny doing voiceovers for animal videos. I found myself pretty objective when it comes to comedy, and a relatively less funny guy has more likes and views. Yeah. What is the difference between these two guys, you might ask? Well, the one with less views is Wutu, and maybe more Wutu need to be exposed to him, which kind of goes back to this whole idea of like a Wutu space. So, that said, if you look at it objectively, they both have the same material, and if the basic 10% of watchers of his videos like it, then you get the, not so well-known 10% effect and rule. Not so well-known 10% rule and effect. So if you get 100 views, the general populace, like regardless of race, gender, sex, creed, etc., generally 10% of your 100 views is going to be reflected in, like, say, the likes. But it depends. Like, in the less general sense, if it's like, say, female-driven media video or something like that on YouTube, and they get like 3,000 views, but they don't get 300 likes, but they get like 150 likes, it's because the people that normally like for the general, I don't know, what's guy's name from New Rock Stars, Eric Boss. the Eric Bosses of the world will get their 10%, but the Jessica Clemens of the world will get their 5%. So just keep in mind that the reason why I'm making this entire video is because I've seen these patterns and I want to share them with people, and I want to make sure that it's apparent to people that do want to do things differently. All right, so I want to do a reaction of the film Birth of a Nation. There's two of them. I actually haven't seen either one of them. The latest one is the one with Nate Parker, and that's another thing. Like, he got crucified in the press, and basically worse situation than Jonathan Majors, and basically no one went to see his movie because, like, it was almost like the same exact time that the film was coming out was when his crucifixion started. So yeah, the other Birth of a Nation is actually the film that was supposed to be like one of the first major motion pictures, and it was made just for non-Wutu, or basically just white people. And the whole point of that film was, to declare the superior race and, basically Nazism. So basically I want to do a breakdown of that. Let me know if that would seem interesting to you, or too taboo, or I don't know, whatever. But let's see, scene by scene. Yeah, I would like to do it like a scene by scene breakdown of that, and point out how honest it is, and how civil it is, because it probably isn't. Also, I urge you to share this video in one place online where the conversation is about Wutu community, even if it's in a comment in response to someone that seems to still be looking for that withheld acceptance. Yeah, so on that note, I said all that to say, unity for the people at all costs. Unity for the people, kwa gharama yoyote. Umoja kwa wananchi at all costs. Umoja kwa wananchi kwa gharama yoyote.